Hey there everyone, this is Aaron Loftis, and today I'm going to talk you through a time-lapse of a recent set design that I did for my personal project, Tire. So, I wanted to start doing these things to give back to the community a little bit. I see a bunch of other artists posting all these awesome like Procreate time-lapses or, just streams that they've recorded or something, and I really enjoy watching them. It makes me feel like if I see someone else's process that I trust and enjoy their artwork, that like maybe it kind of demystifies how someone can create something so great. So yeah, I wanted to give back a little bit, show you guys what I was thinking while doing this, and here we go. So I personally do not have the time to do perspective. It takes me so damn long and I can't do it. So I blocked this scene out in Maya. That took me probably 2.5 hours or so. I'm not the most technically proficient or anything in Maya by a long shot, so it takes me a little bit longer. So I blocked some things out. I mean, you can obviously tell here that everything is very, very rudimentary box modeling, and I used that as a base for my perspective on this room. I had done, I would say, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 room layout sketches in my sketchbook leading up to this. So this definitely was not just like, oh, I'm just going to model it and then I'll be done. No, it took a lot of like hemming and hawing and trying to find the right layout that kind of lent itself best to the thing I was trying to do. It was just like, create this believable teenage girl's room. So before I, even got into like the sketching phase or got into the 3D modeling, gathered a bunch of reference of just like kids' rooms, like loft bedrooms. I looked up reference of like reading windows and bookshelves and old wood floors, everything I could possibly think of. And I also just took a bunch of pictures around my actual house. My art workstation right next to me has, like a bunch of pencils and pens and scissors and books and sketchbooks and everything under the sun. So yeah, I did my absolute best job to gather as much stuff as I could before even getting into any of the nitty-gritty. So I cannot really understate how important planning is. If you are really trying to get something across, if you're trying to make people, feel a certain way and stuff, you really have to do your due diligence of just why you're trying to communicate this thing to a person, why they're going to believe that this space is real or that this character is real or believable or whatever. You have to do your research and plan for what you're trying to do. So yeah, in this case, it's just like, all right, well, create a believable space that like a teenage girl may, live in. Like, what kind of character is she? How does that influence everything else in this room? So I would always kind of direct everything back to that. Like, she's messy, but she likes to read, and sometimes she'll just like hang out at her desk, and she's kind of all over the place. So she'll like run around her room, or it's every little tidbit that you can think of to make your story more believable. It's like the devil is in the details, kind of. The details are what makes something feel legitimate. Like, if you look at where you're sitting right now, I guarantee that there are a handful of little knickknacks and tchotchkes just sitting around you, but it's because you placed them there and you weren't really thinking about it. That's why placing little nuggets of something can really intrigue a viewer in your image. Little things for them to find and to keep their eyes wandering around the page. So right now, I'm going through like the rough sketch phase in order to validate my design, to see where I can push and pull things a little bit, and to see what things need to be added to my design to make it better. The 3D layout can get you so far, but like I'm not going to sit there and spend a million hours. Like, modeling the blanket on her bed. Like, that wouldn't do me any good. And it also probably wouldn't be accurate to, I don't know, a folded blanket on a bed or something. So when you're thinking of, designing something, you should be thinking of from general to specific. Doing this shows the difference between someone who has a really great grasp on storytelling and is able to convince people that the place that they're making is believable, as opposed to someone who doesn't. All right, so I started to rough sketch the center rug in her room. I'm not really sure why I chose a circular rug over something else. I don't know, maybe just kind of fit the space a little bit better. But you can see that by her bed, there's like an old teacup, and there's like a sock, and just a whole bunch of other random stuff. I tried thinking of like, all right, well, when the character would be sitting on her bed or something, like if she, is doing something she doesn't want to get up, she's probably just going to set things right next to her bed. And because I feel like that's something I would do, or, anyone would do. Yeah, so I kind of went with this, I don't know, just like a bunch of, little knickknacks and doodads laying around her bed and stuff. So with this part, I had to take an extra snapshot of the render that I did because I just had lost, I don't know, like a layer somewhere. And I started to rough in the turntable that she would maybe listen to, or something that, like, when she's on the floor. I found it enjoyable to think that, maybe she was like doing homework or something, and all of these old vinyls are her mom's or something. So she threw them on the ground when she's sitting there diving into her homework or reading or whatever she's doing. It felt like a real thing that my mom would have told me that she did as a kid or something. So I also think that because I had the humongous circular rug there, that it was a great way to occupy space, but it was just too empty. So I had to fill it with something, fill it with a little more character. I think I eventually ended up moving those things around a little bit, but so now you can see I'm starting to clean up my drawings a little bit. I'm working on the chest right here. Also, fun fact, this chest I have this exact chest back home. This is like one of the gifts that my dad gave me when I was a kid, and it sat at the foot of my bed for almost my entire life. So I also always remember having stuffed animals on it. Yeah, I was a kid that had stuffed animals, whatever. I was also a kid that had the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling in my room. I thought they were just the coolest thing as a kid. Yeah, so you can see, I'm still going through cleaning some stuff up. Everything's still pretty rough at this point. Yeah, I'm cleaning up the nightstand right now. I think just like the shapes weren't quite doing it for me. I tried this idea of adding wallpaper to her room. I thought it would add a nice, like, oh, well, that gives a little bit of age to the house. That is something I would have seen in my grandparents', attic or, spare bedroom or whatever. But I think at some point it ended up getting like pretty noisy, and I didn't want like a pattern or something going on back there because it just would have been too much. So I think I ended up taking it down quite a bit. Oh yeah, this is the lamp that I put on her desk. I have this exact lamp on my work desk at home. It was something. It's like one more level of believability for something that I have in my room. It is maybe, I don't know, I felt like it filled up that space too a little bit. Like there was so much blank space in the back wall that I just didn't know what to do with. So, well, I was like, all right, well, that makes it a little more, readable, I guess, and fills up that space a little bit more. Right now you can just see I'm blocking in some colors. This is like pretty basic stuff. I mean, like everyone out there can, grab a brush or the lasso tool and fill stuff in. So like it's not maybe technically the most interesting, but one thing that I can say about like my thought process through this part was that I'm always thinking about layering lights on top of darks and vice versa. It helps with your image making in general, that contrast is important to the reader or to the viewer, that their eyes perceive a value difference, which places things on top of or behind something else. So whenever you're, laying in your colors for objects or props or characters or whatever, you should always be thinking of lighter or darker and how they layer on top of each other. Yep, right now, still just filling in some stuff. I decided to go with a lighter desk here. I felt like that seemed a little more appropriate for the room. Like maybe she got this old desk from like a garage sale or something, and they just painted the whole thing white to make it seem like it's new and hers. This right there, I was coloring in the Polaroid pictures on her mirror. That is a fun little tidbit that I got from my girlfriend, actually. I asked her like what was on her desk when she was growing up, or even now. And she's like, oh, I always had pictures of my friends and family taped to my mirror. It just made it feel more like a homey place to be, that wasn't just like a work desk or like where I put my makeup on or something. So I thought that was a nice little touch to kind of bring it into a realm of maybe this person feels a little more real. I have that bow tie mug sitting right next to me right now, full of all the exact same things, pens, pencils, scissors, and whatnot. I feel like she would probably paint her nails there, maybe in bed, but I don't know, maybe, she, kicks back a little bit, throws her foot up, maybe spilled one nail polish over and it's kind of hardened under it. Like I said, it's just trying to find little tiny details that can really take your design or your thinking to the next level. It's going to be not very apparent in the beginning, but for a reader, I keep saying reader, for a viewer to want to be interested in your image, if you give them more to look at as their eyes roll through the image, then they're more likely to I feel like they're more likely to remember it. I'm not sure if that's actually true or not, but I feel like if I notice something that was a really close attention to detail, I'd be like, oh man, like that was a really nice touch. Like, how can I learn from that to make my next thing I'm doing, feel that way? Right there, I was just lassoing in some, local colors for the posters and pictures and whatever. Filling in some more random books and whatnot. I had made sure that whole bookshelf area was airtight. So it means like there's like a contiguous line from the entire outside of the drawing. So that way I can select outside of it, invert my selection, and then just kind of fill in the whole thing in one fell swoop instead of trying to bust my butt and like just waste a lot of time coloring in the outline of the thing. So yeah, that was one little piece that I liked. I like sharing little tidbits of what makes my workflow faster. Shockingly enough, designing these stuffed animals on the foot of the bed was pretty tough. And as you can tell, the design of the chest changed. It was super duper noisy before, and I felt like this was just a better read and did the job I needed it to. Right now, I'm moving around some lighting that I had done. So early on, I had ended up throwing in just like rough value to see how I wanted my light to play, and I just kept it around. I think I threw it up at top, so I just flipped it on really quick to see how the room felt in terms of like a mood or something. I went with I researched carpet, like rugs in girls' rooms for a while, which is bizarre, but like if it was like flowers or hearts or whatever, but it had to feel right for the space, and it took me a while to figure it out, so I probably spent more time trying to do that than I would be proud to admit. Right now I'm just trying to throw in some pretty basic shadow shapes. They're nothing to write home about. It's just general, like, okay, the light is coming in from that left window. It is going to not have light in these places. It's nothing crazy. Also, the way that I compose this image is a little interesting. So, because the aspect ratio is so wide, it was originally meant, it is still and is originally meant for a book to be bifold. So the center of the book, when it folds, is somewhere to the right of the left window. And one piece of information that I was told when trying to compose book images and book pages is that each page of the book should hold up by itself. So if you covered the entire other page, would this image still work? So what I tried to do was have that window just a little bit inside of, where the composition would be if it was just the left half of the image, and try to make both sides interesting, completely separate from each other. So I think that's, like I said, this isn't the most, intriguing composition for a set design, but it does the job of what that is. That's what I wanted to accomplish with this, was designing this little set area, so I don't have to have some crazy, upshot camera angle, but I have to communicate this space to someone else in the chain, 3D modeler or whoever, if it was in an actual work environment. As you can tell, most of my composition or compositional objects lead you into the page. So the way that the bed is angled is going to lead you toward the light source. The way that the top of the turntable is turned up, the angle of the work desk on the left, everything is going to try and lead you to like the brightest point in this image. It's not technically a focal point because it's a set design, and that's not really the point of this. But it is still has to be a compelling image, despite it just being a set design. Or at least that's how I felt anyway. One little tidbit I can tell you is that, despite what you have to do in any scenario, you should always pick something special that you're going to try and learn in this piece. I had never really done a super involved set design before, and I loved seeing them. So I took it upon myself to try to do one to the best of my abilities at the time. I think it's good to push yourself in no matter what the assignment is. Don't be afraid to just try something new. You never know what's going to end up happening. You can see me right now trying to figure out some of the lighting stuff. There's not a lot going on. I just tried to add some pretty simple like ambient occlusion kind of, which is a term for where light, when it's bouncing around, begins to bounce around less as two objects begin to meet. So there's not a lot of light bouncing around underneath the bed, obviously. There's not a lot of light bouncing around far away from the light source. So it was not a lot of detail or effort paid there, but it's just enough to kind of make it feel like it is a naturally lit room from this window. Right here, I had illustrated this chair design, and I ended up having a really hard time trying to figure out if I wanted this backpack in there to be, open or whatever. And I found out that it was just like kind of covering my whole chair design and half of the desk in the background. So I ended up altering it a little bit. I didn't want it to obscure any other piece of design that I felt was more interesting than just a piece of a chair. So you can see me kind of editing it a little bit, and I had done that backpack for a while, and I think that ended up just getting nixed at some point because I just could not make it work out the way I'd hoped it would. I jumped over to draw some little posters. So I have a bunch of posters up in her room, and I didn't really know what to do, but I just kind of was like, well, maybe, she likes traveling. She hopes she can do that one day. So here's like a little plane flying through some mountains. You can see on the left, I had a poster from a Boston album. My mom was a really big Boston fan, so I wanted to maybe try and do that, and it didn't work out. So I went with a couple of other things. Also, another piece of storytelling from this project was when I was a small child, my mom and I had this book about the constellations. So one of the images I made was them outside looking up at the stars with a book of the constellations. So I felt like if I can keep that theme going throughout, maybe it, will help make a little more sense. So I drew this universe map, and you can see me here using the warp tool to kind of skew it into the proper perspective and make it feel like it's actually part of that room. You can see me lightening and darkening it to make sure it's going to fall behind the work desk and books. I had a little bit of trouble with that. Really quickly just threw down some wood paneling. It ended up actually changing a little bit because those wood panels, you would never want to walk across those. Like, as interesting as they are, it's going to kill your feet. Right here, I just wanted to throw a little hat, maybe on, weekends or random days, she just throws on a hat. She doesn't want to do her hair. So it's just like a little nice touch of, when she walks into her room, maybe she just throws the hat on her chair. Also, if I were you, I would never underestimate the power of sending your work to a friend really quick, even just for a super quick critique. I know it helped me get this piece to a place that I was happy with. I got a lot of really good feedback from my friend Francis and from my friend Jed. After you've stared at something for so long that your eyes just kind of lose the ability to make good choices. So when someone can kind of rein you back in a little bit, it will definitely help your thought process. At the end of the day, you really have to think of what you want someone to take away from your image. It's going to be the difference between someone flipping through it on Instagram or someone actually stopping to want to comment on it and tell you what a great job you've done or how it's maybe inspired them. All right, so that actually went by pretty darn quick. I was a little worried at first, but yeah, I hope that this helped someone. I hope that the process of watching me make this thing, even though if it's a little bit jumbled up and kind of missing chunks here and there, I hope that it helped. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to message me. I would love to help or give feedback or tell you more about my process or send you the uncondensed version. Feel free to come say hey over on Instagram. I am at AaronCanDraw. Same thing on the Twitters. Yeah, I hope this helped everyone. Feel free to reach out, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.